Long before Texas had a name, before cities or borders, this land echoed with the footsteps of its earliest people. Paleo-Indians, the first Texans, roamed these wild, shifting landscapes, tracking mammoth and bison across vast plains and dense forests. They were skilled hunters, moving with the seasons, reading the land and sky for signs of game and weather. Their lives were shaped by the rhythms of nature, and every day was a test of survival and ingenuity. The flint tools they crafted, sharp spear points, scrapers and knives, were essential for hunting and daily life. Scattered from the Panhandle to the Gulf Coast, ancient campsites and fire pits tell a story of adaptation and resilience. Archaeologists uncover butchered animal bones and stone tools, piecing together the lives of people who thrived here for thousands of years, long before written history. Over countless generations, these early peoples evolved into diverse nations, each uniquely adapted to their environment. They learned to read the rivers, forests, and plains, developing knowledge passed down through families and communities. In the east, the Caddo built great earthen mounds, centers of ceremony and community. Along the coast, the Karankawa fished and gathered, expertly navigating the bays and marshes. On the sweeping plains, the Apache and Comanche became legendary horsemen and hunters, following the bison herds and defending their territories with courage and skill. In the arid west and lush south, the Humano and Coahuiltecan peoples found ways to thrive, trading, gathering, and adapting to the challenges of their homelands. Each group shaped its own way of life, deeply connected to the land and its rhythms. They gathered wild plants, tended fields, and crafted tools and art, all while honoring the spirits of earth and sky. Texas was a tapestry of languages, beliefs, and traditions, woven together over centuries. The diversity of its peoples was far more complex and vibrant than outsiders ever imagined, with each nation contributing its own stories, ceremonies, and wisdom. The arrival of Europeans would upend this world, bringing new challenges and change. Yet the legacy of the first Texans endures, in the land itself, in the names that dot the map, and in the enduring spirit of the state's people. Their story is the foundation of Texas history, a story of resilience, ingenuity, and deep connection to a vast and beautiful land. European Texas began with a mistake: Pineda's 1519 map of the Gulf Coast, drawn in search of a passage to Asia, not a new colony. The land was claimed on paper but remained a mystery. True contact came in 1528, when Cabeza de Vaca and other shipwreck survivors washed ashore, enduring years among indigenous peoples as captives and healers. Their tales of vast lands and rumored riches sparked Spanish dreams of conquest. Expeditions like Coronado's scoured Texas for golden cities, finding only endless plains and buffalo. Disappointed, Spain's interest faded, and Texas became a neglected frontier, claimed but barely touched. For decades, it was a land of rumors and lost opportunities. The Spanish presence would only grow when new threats emerged. For decades, Spain's hold on the vast, untamed lands of Texas was little more than a claim on a map, an assertion of power with few settlers and even fewer outposts. Spanish explorers had traversed the region, but their presence was scattered and their control tenuous at best. Everything changed in 1685, when the French explorer La Salle, aiming for the mouth of the Mississippi, instead landed by mistake at Matagorda Bay on the Texas coast. The arrival of French ships in what Spain considered its territory sent shockwaves through the Spanish colonial world. La Salle and his followers built Fort St. Louis, a small wooden outpost that struggled against disease, isolation, and hostile conditions. Though the French colony soon failed, its mere existence deeply alarmed Spanish officials, who suddenly realized how vulnerable their northern frontier truly was. In response, Spain acted with unprecedented urgency. Expeditions of soldiers, priests, and settlers were dispatched into the wilds of Texas, determined to find and eliminate the French threat. These journeys were grueling, crossing rivers, forests, and prairies, but the Spanish were resolute. The discovery of the ruined Fort St. Louis was a wake-up call. Spanish leaders understood that simply claiming Texas was not enough. They had to occupy it, defend it, and settle it, or risk losing it to European rivals. This realization sparked a new era. Spain began building a network of missions and presidios, fortified settlements and religious outposts, stretching from the piney woods of East Texas to the arid lands of San Antonio and El Paso. These institutions became the backbone of Spanish Texas, Missions like San Francisco de los Techas were established to convert, educate, and settle indigenous peoples, while also anchoring Spanish authority in the region. Priests and soldiers worked side by side, forging fragile alliances and sometimes uneasy coexistence with native communities. Over time, these outposts grew into the first European communities in Texas. Families, farmers, and craftsmen arrived, laying the foundations for towns and villages that would shape the region's future. With the French intrusion, the contest for Texas had truly begun, a struggle that would define the destiny of the land for generations to come. For a century, Spanish missions and presidios defined European Texas, but their hold was fragile. The missions struggled to convert nomadic tribes, and the settlements remained small and isolated. Revolution in Mexico in 1810 brought chaos to Texas, leaving it battered and sparsely populated by 1821. The new Mexican government, unable to secure the frontier, invited American settlers with generous land grants. Stephen F. Austin led the first wave, the Old 300, who brought their own language, customs, and slaves. Tensions quickly grew between Anglo settlers and Mexican authorities over culture, law, and slavery. By 1830, Mexico halted further U.S. immigration, fearing loss of control. The seeds of revolution were sown. In 1835, simmering tensions erupted into the Texas Revolution. The conflict began at Gonzales. Texans refused to surrender a cannon, sparking open rebellion. Early victories emboldened the rebels, who declared independence in 1836 at Washington on the Brazos. Santa Anna's army swept north, besieging the Alamo, where outnumbered defenders fell after a brutal assault. "Remember the Alamo" became a rallying cry, especially after the massacre at Goliad. Sam Houston's forces retreated, then struck back at San Jacinto, capturing Santa Anna in a swift, decisive battle. Texas had won its independence. A new republic was born, but its future was far from secure. The struggle for Texas had only just begun. The Republic of Texas faced debt, conflict, and the threat of Mexican invasion. Most Texans wanted U.S. statehood, but annexation was delayed by fierce debates over slavery. With the election of James K. Polk and the rise of Manifest Destiny, Texas joined the Union in 1845. Annexation triggered war with Mexico over disputed borders. U.S. forces clashed with Mexican troops, and the Mexican-American War began. The 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the conflict, with Mexico ceding Texas and vast western lands to the United States. Texas's fate was sealed as part of a growing nation. The consequences of these events would shape the state for generations. By 1861, Texas's economy and society were tied to slavery and the South. Secession swept the state after Lincoln's election despite opposition from Unionists like Sam Houston. Texas joined the Confederacy, sending thousands to fight in distant battles. The state became a vital supply center, its ports lifelines for the Southern war effort. Texas saw little direct combat, but internal divisions ran deep. Unionist communities faced violence and persecution. The war's end brought emancipation, but also left scars of conflict and division. The Civil War was not just distant battles, it was a struggle that pitted Texan against Texan. The legacy of this era would linger long after the guns fell silent. Emancipation in 1865 brought freedom to 250,000 African Americans in Texas, celebrated as Juneteenth. Reconstruction saw new rights and political gains for Black Texans, but also fierce resistance and violence from white supremacists. Military rule and a new constitution briefly reshaped the state, but redemption by white Democrats in 1874 ended these reforms. Jim Crow laws and a new constitution in 1876 entrenched segregation and disenfranchisement. The promise of Reconstruction faded, replaced by decades of racial oppression. Yet the struggle for equality and justice would continue. The fight for civil rights was far from over. As the 20th century dawned, Texas remained a land of wide-open spaces and small rural communities, where life moved at the pace of the seasons and the rhythms of the land. But beneath the surface, powerful forces of change were gathering, and the state was on the brink of a dramatic transformation. The 1900 Galveston hurricane devastated the city, claiming thousands of lives and leaving destruction in its wake. Yet, in the face of unimaginable loss, Texans responded with innovation and resolve. building a massive seawall and raising the city's elevation, turning tragedy into a testament to their determination and ingenuity. Just a year later, the Spindletop oil gusher erupted near Beaumont, forever altering the state's destiny. The discovery of oil sparked an economic boom, drawing people from across the nation and the world. Towns grew into cities almost overnight, and Texas became a symbol of opportunity and ambition, its landscape dotted with oil derricks and bustling with new industries. But prosperity was not guaranteed. The Great Depression and the Dust Bowl of the 1930s brought hardship and uncertainty. Crops failed, families struggled, and the land itself seemed to turn against its people. Yet, through these trials, Texans displayed remarkable resilience, adapting to adversity and finding new ways to survive and thrive. In 1963, the world's eyes turned to Dallas when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. The tragedy sent shockwaves far beyond Texas, leaving a deep and lasting mark on the state's history and identity. It was a moment of national mourning, but also a turning point that challenged Texans to reflect on their place in a rapidly changing America. Through disaster and triumph, Texas forged a modern identity, rooted in the mythos of the frontier but increasingly defined by energy, diversity, and a spirit of reinvention. The state's cities grew into vibrant centers of culture, commerce, and innovation, drawing people from every corner of the globe. Today, Texas is a place of striking contrasts, where rural traditions meet urban dynamism, and where the old ways coexist with bold new ideas. Its landscapes are as varied as its people, from sprawling ranches to gleaming skyscrapers. The story of Texas is one of constant transformation, where echoes of the past shape the challenges and opportunities of the future. Each generation leaves its mark, building on the legacy of those who came before. This is the Texas that endures today, a state defined by its trials, its triumphs, and its unyielding drive to reinvent itself for whatever comes next.